Last year I spent just £687, but this year I managed to rack up my most expensive year yet with my Tesla Model 3. For my third year of ownership, I saw my charging costs double for a period of time, and I had to buy new tyres and undertake my first MOT test. So this year I had a wider variety of costs, plus the cost of charging had increased considerably. Now, if you're new to EVs or Teslas, this is your chance to get an insider's take of what the full ownership cost of a Tesla Model 3 could be like over a full 3-year ownership span. Even if you are a Tesla owner today, do you know how or where to get an MOT test for your Tesla? Therefore, today's video is purely about costs. I did a cheeky poll just prior to the video, and more than 50% of viewers think it's still between the £500 and £1,000 mark. But I'm not sure that you knew my charging costs had increased so dramatically over this past year. So this video will definitely be insightful, and hopefully the transparency will be helpful to you. Right, it's time to dig into the data and how it compares to year 1 and year 2, and finally over a 3-year span on what the grand total actually is. If you haven't already done so, please consider hitting the like button, subscribing, and better yet, hitting the notification bell if you haven't already. Right, let's get into this, folks. So I think we should start with one of the biggest cost differentiators of owning an electric car, which is the charging costs. Now, if you can, you'll want to rely on home charging, as generally this will not only offer the most convenient way of charging, it's likely to be the cheapest way to charge too. But for me, my costs went on a bit of a roller coaster ride. From December 2022, I started the ownership year on a fixed tariff whereby I had 4 hours of non-peak charging at 5 pence per kilowatt hour, and the other 20 hours at 13.5 pence per kilowatt hour. And this was my cheap electricity costs, and I was super fortunate that this fixed tariff helped shield my home electricity costs and EV charging costs from the start of the energy crisis. But all good things do come to an end, and especially fixed tariffs, and I was then exposed to the worst of the charging costs. My peak charging costs, the period where I charged my car, actually increased by 100% to 10 pence per kilowatt hour, and my peak usage rate was around 250% more expensive at around 34 pence per kilowatt hour. A small win was that I did gain an extra 2 hours of non-peak charging, so I had 6 hours in total, and the intelligent or the smart side of the tariff, should we say, allowed me to gain even more hours on top of that. But needless to say, I had around 2.5 months charging at that 5 pence per kilowatt hour level, then 10 pence per kilowatt hour for around 3 to 4 months after that, and before dropping down to a more respectable 7.5 pence per kilowatt hour for the remaining 7 months, racking up around 8,705 miles over the course of the year. And comparing the electricity usage to last year, the car also reported 2,114 kilowatt hours of energy was used for the period. My average price then worked out at 7.55 pence per kilowatt hour for the year, and therefore this then jots up to a grand total of £159.60 for the year. And yes, that was for the year. That's 2 pence per mile of driving, or £13.30 a month to my electricity bill each month. £13.30 does not get you far in a petrol car, definitely not 725 miles a month, as this electric currently did. That said, being as transparent as I can, this energy figure does not incorporate any charging losses from the charger to the car. For one reason or another, I won't go into the full nerdy details on the reasons why that exists, but in reality, there will be some charging losses, so that total could be as high as 10% as a result. But being super duper cautious, you will see how much that extrapolates with a whopper of, say, 15% losses, and that adds around £2 a month to your monthly costs. Hardly a deal breaker, right? I used the Tesla supercharger network just 5% of the time, or for 145 kilowatt hours of energy over the year. These were free miles to me, so it came at no cost to me. But if you did pay for it, the cost varies depending on what site you visited and what time you did. Using this example, doing it at 36 pence would have totaled around £52 for the year for me. But let's move on to another controversial subject: insurance and tax. Remember, my ownership period runs from December 2022 to December 2023 here. The year prior, my insurance had increased to £552, not including the optional extras. This included multiple declared accidents too. For 2022 to 23, I managed to drop this to an unexpected rate of £326, especially because my insurance had increased so much because of the declared accidents. To see it drop to the lowest levels yet was super surprising. I can't really say the same for the current year though. I just did a video on how I've paid the most yet for my car insurance, which will then be included in my 4-year figures next year. And you can take a look at how and why my premium increased quite significantly using the video on the screen now. Now, before I talk about MOT tests and buying new tyres, taxing the Model 3 couldn't be simpler. I wish the damn thing would just auto-renew each year though, but every year you still get the notice that says, "Excuse me sir, you need to tell us if you are taxing your vehicle this year and it will cost the grand total to you of absolutely jack." At least the DVLA made the process even simpler this year. I had to log onto the website, enter the unique code, confirm the renewal. It took like 2 or 3 minutes. Whilst it's free, you can still get a fine for not dealing with your annual renewal. So whilst it is free, you still need to confirm your renewal each year. So don't make that rookie mistake. You'll probably never live it down, seeing your beloved Tesla clamped for not taxing your vehicle for free. And yes, I'm not making this up. Moving on to MOT servicing and new tyres. Here in the UK, there is a roadworthy test completed by independently verified garages that effectively provide you as the owner a certificate to stipulate that your car is roadworthy. This test is not completed by Tesla themselves. They don't do it, so don't bother asking them. You will need to find an alternative garage to undertake this test. Now, this test should be no different to a typical petrol diesel car. It is required at year 3, but naturally there are checks that are not applicable for EVs, such as emission testing. Anyhow, before booking my appointment with Tyre, who are a national chain around the UK, I was under the impression any garage that already complete MOTs today should be able to complete one on a Tesla. That said, I decided to use one that was at least familiar with electric cars. Tyre wasn't too far from me and they offered electric car servicing. That I did not opt for because apart from the brakes, I didn't really see the benefit of a £100 premium. So the £30 MOT would suffice for me. However, before I did the MOT, I had been monitoring my tread depths thanks to my not so fancy tyre tread depth machine. I had actually mentioned in some of my previous videos that I was expecting the tread to drop to replacement territory around this point of the year. The rears on my rear-wheel drive Model 3 had completed 25,000 miles and had just over 3mm on one tyre and around 4 on the other tyre. Having reviewed Tesla's written recommendations at 3mm heading into winter, I made the wise decision to actually replace the pair, as at 3mm there is an increased chance of aquaplaning in wet conditions, so I purchased the same Michelin tyres to match the fronts, these being the Tesla optimised Michelin Pilot Sport 4s with the acoustic foam. Being super savvy, I paid a discounted price of £291 for 2 tyres fully installed too. Therefore, adding both the cost of the MOT and tyres, together with around £5 worth of screen wash, that is all the maintenance to date. For a total of £326 for the year, I personally thought 25,000 miles for a set of tyres that hadn't been rotated was bang on expectation. The fronts will probably need changing next year as they are around 5mm still, but should surpass 30,000 miles. I drive relatively normally compared to my enthusiastic wife, should we say. So what does the total cost stack up to in year 3 of ownership, and how does it compare to the other 2, plus the final position over 3 years? So adding electricity, insurance, maintenance, I have paid a total of £811.52 between December 2022 to December 23. This is the most I've ever had to pay over the course of the year in the Model 3. Primarily, this fell down to a 50% average increase on my home charging costs and having to buy new tyres this time round. But in pounds and pence again, what was the previous 2 totals? Well, last year I had paid £687 and the year prior to that £593, for which for 3 years in total I've spent £2,091.55. That's equivalent to £58 a month over a 36-month term if you're interested, and this is for 25,268 miles for absolutely everything from electric to maintenance, insurance and tax. For electricity to cover this mileage over 3 years, it's cost me a gobsmacking £354 alone. for 25,268 miles. This is literally vaporware. This would average out around 1.4 pence per mile, or £9.83 for the month alone, or £11.30 including extreme charging losses, if we're being widely transparent. If you want to know how much I spent on accessories during the third year, it was only £35 this year, as I bought a electrified tyre inflator and jack pads, and these can be found in the kit list via the video description if you are interested in the ones that I bought. But this non-essential accessory spend put me on £598 in total, and is kept separate deliberately so you know how much it costs me to run the car, but also how much I've spent on those non-essential, non-cosmetic additions, or items that you may already have today. So to conclude, even a more expensive year for the Tesla Model 3 can still be significantly cheaper than a petrol alternative. For context, my Tesla app tells me how much petrol I would have spent for the year doing the equivalent mileage. This year, it would have totaled £1,608 for just 1 year only. I spent pretty much half of that at £811 for simply everything else. I think for a petrol alternative at year 3, I would have paid something similar for a set of tyres, MOT, tax, maybe more in servicing. That alone, you could have been looking at around £3,000 for a petrol equivalent at year 3, pretty much easily. You should probably expect a potential brake pad replacement and any cam belts or water pump replacements, as these sort of costs do start to creep in with a petrol car around this 3-4 year point. So what do you guys think to my 3-year total Tesla Model 3 ownership costs? Do you have any other cost saving tips or cheeky accessories worth a dib? Alternatively, was this outlook that you were looking for? Surely you didn't expect it to be around £811 for the year, did you? Let me know in the comments below. If you're not sure what to comment and you want to show me you got this far in the video, you could simply comment well-informed vaporware and I will give you a cheeky thumbs up for the support. I'm hoping to do my 3rd year owner review video real soon, and I'm hoping you won't want to miss that too. So if you've not done so already, please hit the like button, subscribe and share the video with your friends and family in any other group that may find it beneficial. As always, you folks have been great and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.